Good morning everyone, it's Luke Knott here, and in today's segment of Blender with Luke we'll be going through cell fracture, rigid bodies and rigid body collisions. Before we get started, I want to apologise for the delay in the recording as well as the uploading of this video. We generally do Blender with Luke on Saturdays and we upload on Sundays, but due to audio issues with the last one, I had to delay and reschedule it for Monday. So, I'm Luke Knott and this is Blender with Luke. So welcome to Blender with Luke. Today is the 22nd of January 2018 and we got a lot to do today. But before we get into it, I'd like to say thank you to sippy.co.uk, that's sippy.co.uk, for creating our studio mug, which is a nice quality mug with our logo brand on it and everything. And they also made us a glass cup coaster, which is very generous of them. So let's just say that you got a business and you want to sell merchandises with your own brand name on them, or you just want to have pictures of family and friends up on your wall, or you want a key ring with your favourite kind of character on it, or your own artwork. You can do that with sippy.co.uk. They can develop or produce almost any kind of accessory that you want, from key rings to your mouse mats to your laptop skin to your own mugs, your own paintings up on the wall and things like that. I would also like to say thank you to clothestooorder.com for developing our studio shirt that we have as well. So I say thank you to sippy.co.uk and clothestooorder.com. That is clothes, the number 2 and order.com. So we're going to begin with the first thing on our note, which is changing pivot point, or your origins. Your origins is basically where you actually move your object from. For example, if you look at this cube, we have this, where the cursor is located, we have this little dot thing. That dot is our object's origin. Now it's important to note that, because your origin point is very important for certain things that you are wanting to make. For example, if you're making a door, you don't want it to swing from the middle part of the door, unless it's one of those rotating doors. But if it's like your door that you got at home, you want it to rotate based on the hinges, which would be at the side of the door. You can do that when you move the pivot point. And I'm going to be demonstrating you right now in how to move your pivot point. This should have been something that I should have covered in my earlier videos, but due to time as well as other things that I want to get through, we aren't here to teach very new Blender users. We're here to teach those who have used Blender for a long time, as well as those who have used it for a little while, people who actually understand the ins and outs of Blender but don't know all of the techniques and things like that. This is what this segment is all about, to teach those who are intermediate to advanced users. But I won't go into too much depth in a lot of things, because I personally consider myself an advanced user of Blender, but I don't know everything. You can't learn everything. You can learn what you can. But to begin, we're just going to start with changing the pivot point for now. Say that this cube is the door. It'd be more helpful if I actually made it look like a door. So before we actually do the pivot point, I'm going to scale my object to make it look more like a door. To scale your objects, if you remember watching my last videos, you'll know that you can press the S key for the scale and the X key for the axis. And you can also press the numbers on the top of your keyboard to define how much it has changed. So for this, I'm going to type in 0.5. which is half of 1, which is the default size. We are now going to slightly increase the y-axis by saying scale on the y-axis by 2. Now we are going to increase the height of the object by pressing this S key, which is your scale key, the Z key for your Z axis, and we're going to type in, let's just say about 4. 4 will do. That's a very blocky door, but it works. So to change our pivot point, or our origins, as it's known in Blender, it's known as a pivot point if you were using something like Autodesk Maya. It's still origins, but it's better to call it a pivot point, because when you pivot an object, that's kind of like where it like rotates side to side, it's on that point, and that's pivoting. That's why I call it a pivot point. So to move our origin point, we're going to go and select our face, select tool here, and then we're just going to right click on that face there. Now we want to move our cursor to there. Now you can move your cursor in many ways. You can either type in, you press the space bar to open up this command, this little command tool. So I can say type in snap, and here we've got a list of things we can do. Snap cursor to selected, and we can do that. There are other ways you can do it, like if you went down to here, snap, and you can just go to your selection cursor or cursor to selected and things like that, or you can press the left shift and the S key and it brings it up. So now we have our cursor here on the edge of our cube, but our origin point is still here. To move, what we've got to do now is we've got to have to move that to there. Now to move that, we can either press the space key and type in set origin, and you click on that, and you can move your origin to the 3D cursor, and as you can see. Or you can use the hotkey, which is the left shift, left control, left alt and the C key, and you can just do it through that way. So now that we have now made our arrow, well not arrow, our origin point, if I now rotate it on the Z axis, you can see it now rotates on the edge of the cube, as I put it, like a door would. Though a door one would be on hinges, therefore only a certain piece of it would open a certain way, because doors do not open like that. The hinges are generally on one side of the door. You can move the pivot point to one of these edges, which I'm going to do now. So I went back into my edit mode. You can go to your edit mode by either going down here and clicking on edit mode, or you can just press the tab key and it sends you into your edit mode. Another thing that you could do if you want to change between your solid mode and your wireframe mode, you can press the Z key, and that allows you to go into your wireframe mode, and you can press the Z key again to go back into solid mode. That's only when you're not in your rotation or your translation or your scaling tool. So let me go to my edge frame here, or my edge select. I click here, and now I'm going to hold down the left shift, left control. Oh, before we actually do that, we can't do it whilst you're in edit mode. Let's just be clear of that. You cannot change your origin point when you're in edit mode. You have to be out of edit mode to do it. But even if I went out of edit mode now, I can't move my pivot point there because I had to move my cursor there. So we're going to hold down left shift and the S key, and we're just going to go to snap cursor to selected. And now we're going to go back into our objects mode, and we're now going to press the left shift, left control, left alt and the C key, and we're just going to say origin to 3D cursor. And now we can have this object open more like a door. Ooh, I went too far. Like so. So that is how you use the pivot point, as I call it, or to other people as it's known in Blender, the origin point. The one thing that you people in this are going to be lucky about is that oh yeah, you want to put your cursor back into the middle, just press the left shift key and the C key and it moves that back into the middle. The good news for most people who are watching this today, we won't be using Blender cycles. We won't be using the cycles render in this segment because we don't need to. Not for what we are doing. So with the pivot point now out of the way, we are now going to go to our rigid bodies. Now I've went through the rigid bodies briefly in the last video when it came to like the cloth and stuff like that. But this time we really gonna be seeing what you can do with the rigid body tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a cube. Add cube. I'm just going to move that under the grid because this cube is going to be our floor. So I'm going to press the G key. I'm going to press the Z key and I'm going to type in -1 and press enter. Now I am going to scale it on by 8 in the X and Y axis because that is the size of the grid. So if I press the Z key and press the Y key and then press the 8 key, there we go. The Y axis is now the length of the grid. I will do the same with the X axis. We're going to press the S key for scaling, X key for the X axis, and then we're going to type in 8 for the length. And now we are done. And this is our floor. This is our floor. Rigid bodies is a very powerful tool to use, or method to use in a 3D space. Because if you don't want it, because one thing it does, it involves physics instead of animation. You don't need to keyframe physics based objects. So it saves time because all you're doing is really letting the gravity of the world do the work for you. And you can find your gravity in your world section. If it's not your world section, what am I doing? Down here in your scene section. The reason I went to world because I assumed it was all world stuff. That was my mistake. But here we got our gravity section. At the moment it is -9.81. For those who do not know their science, -9.81 or -9.8 is basically real world weight or real world gravity. That is how the gravity is in our world on a scientific level. Which means that any objects we drop in here will fall based on our actual gravity, but it depends on the mass of the object as well as what the object is as well. Which is interesting because you can, if you use something like the weight paint, you can actually determine which piece of an object is heavier than the other part of the object, which is very handy. So first thing we're going to do is we are going to make this land or floor excuse me, into a rigid body by clicking here. Now before we do anything else, rigid bodies, as you can see here, we got our rigid body active. Now when it's active, it means that it will correspond with the gravity. So if I click down here onto the play tool or the play button, you see the floor falls. It falls because it's active and it's dynamic. We do not want that. We can also change its collision. Convex Hull is kind of like trying to get the best shape of the cube as much as the object as much as possible, but it won't be better than the actual mesh itself. This is more, when it comes to the mesh part, this is more for your actual 3D stuff. If you are using something like the Blender game engine, you won't have that option. So the closest thing you could use for something like for an object would be your Convex Hull or a box, depending on the object you're using. But for the object we're using, just for the sake of demonstration, we're going to use the box. So we're going to click on box. We have our, so with our collision now as box, that means that any object that hits it will land pretty much on this cube, and it won't fall off it unless it's actually on the edge. We can change the collision margin, which means that the lower it is, the more closer to the ground it is. but we're going to leave it at 0.040, so we ain't going to turn that on. Excuse me. We also got friction, which is the resistance of the object to movement. Now that's interesting when it comes to more solid based objects, because when an object is more solid, it's more resistant, therefore less chance of it moving. But then we got our bounciness, which can make an object bounce when it hits it, and that's what we're going to demonstrate here. So we're going to turn it up to 1, completely 1, and we're going to change this to passive. Now we changed it to passive because when it comes to the actual object like this, in passive mode the floor does not move, which is a good thing because it's a floor. Floors don't naturally fall. I say naturally, doesn't mean they can't, just naturally they can't. which means that now that, but it's still active in terms of other rigid bodies hitting it. We also got its bounciness to 1 because I want to demonstrate the bounciness of this object, and we are going to add in a monkey head. So if you typed in, you can press the space key and just type in add monkey, and it adds in our little Suzanne. As you see right there, her name is Suzanne. Yes, I'm not assuming gender. I am just saying that her name is Suzanne, so therefore it's a woman. We are going to just leave it as it is. If I press play now, the monkey or Suzanne is not falling. The reason she's not falling is because we don't have rigid body. Rigid body only works better when there's gravity, and it's all to do with physics, so therefore everything has to revolve around the actual gravity of the world. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna make that into a rigid body, but we're gonna keep it as active. We had to keep it as active, so therefore that the monkey head will fall. And rigid bodies are also good because the way they fall, they actually move, or they actually roll around and things like that, depending on the object. I mean, in Maya, if I remember the last time I used Maya, there was an option of having a rigid body or a dynamic body. A dynamic body was something that just fell, but it does not, it doesn't rotate or move around or anything. It just falls, and it stays in that perspective. Whereas a rigid body, physics does everything, including the rotation and stuff like that. So we're going to turn that into a mesh because it's quite a complex model. And now if we press on our play button down here, you can see, I'll play the back, a monkey falls like so. And you can see it's rolling and everything. I'll play it one more time. You can see, as you see, the monkey head is rolling around like that. That is because of the rigid body. It's very handy, and it's good. Now if I turn the bounciness up on this as well, this thing's gonna fly. As you see, bang, there it goes, monkey's gone. Wow, I did not expect that. But as you can see, you can make objects do pretty much anything with rigid bodies. Physics is fun. I love physics. Yeah, no matter what we do, you can't control the laws of physics. Literally, not even in this. Well, you can if you choose animated, but we don't want to do that. So that's the things you can do with rigid bodies, and that also partially covers the rigid body collision as well, because these objects are colliding with each other. And this is something that we're going to get into in this video. We are basically going to be working on things like self-fracturing and how we can use that to create a scene of where there's just complete destruction or something. So we're going to leave this floor. We are going to leave this floor here, and I'm just going to delete the monkey head. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into the fracture objects. Now fracture objects is a very, to me, is a good method or technique to have, especially if you're that kind of person who loves to destroy cities and watch buildings collapse. I did a video years ago now where I actually made a scene. Was it years ago or was it a few years ago? I think it was a few years ago, where I made a bridge with cars on it driving along the bridge, and all of a sudden like a sinkhole in the bridge happens, like the bottom of the bridge thing collapses and all the cars fall down in the hole and things like that. That was done through. If I can find the video, I'll actually bring it up in this video. It was on one of my other channels I have, which I no longer use because I'm now focused on my studio channel. So if I can find that video, I will leave it in the description for you to see. So, cell fracture is what we're looking at today. We're gonna use a UV sphere. Add UV sphere. The reason I'm going to use the UV sphere because it's more convenient to do this object. We aren't going to make the thing dynamic, however, in rigid bodies. We are actually going to fracture this object, and then we are going to actually do something different with it. But I'm going to use a different object for that. This is just to demonstrate cell fracture. Now, because we already got all these vertices on it anyways, there's no need. That's why I said it was more convenient to demonstrate the cell fracture animation on a sphere, because it's already got the vertices. You need vertices on your object if you want to use cell fracture, because cell fracture, as we got here, for those who can't see it on their tools section, what you do is you go up here to your file, then you go to your user preferences. Bear with me, it takes time for me, well, for me anyways. At the moment it automatically takes me to my add-ons. If most other people would be starting on interface, so you got all of this. I will go through this another time, but it's not so much as important. The only time you probably ever need to use this is when you want use any of this. It's only when it comes down to your personal preferences. So you change it however you want to change it. We also got your edit, like I said, all this stuff you can change it however you want to change it. We're going to our add-ons though. One thing I would say you would like to have on is the copy attributes menu. This allows you to copy certain properties from one object and apply to other objects, which comes in handy if you, especially with cell fracture in the 3D space, like in Blender Render or Cycles Render. If you accidentally made the object into if you automatically made the object into a rigid body before you use the cell fracture, you won't need to worry about that, because every piece of that object, or they're called cells, will already be rigid bodies anyways. But if you had it just as I've got here, basic model with no rigid bodies involved, then you have to manually go through them all. Copy attributes menus will save you time, because you can copy the rigid body's settings or properties. As long as you got that rigid body one selected and all the others selected as well, all the other non-rigid bodies selected as well, you can change them into rigid bodies. But what we're looking for is the cell fracture, so we're just going to type in cell, and as you can see, type in cell, we have object cell fracture. This is the one we are looking for. So you just tick your box, save your user settings, and then you can just close that down, and then it should automatically show up here. Thing with me is I've got a lot of other things, add-ons turned on. These add-ons come freely in Blender, so you're alright. So I'm going to break this sphere now. I just clicked on it, and as you can see, we got all of these. We've got our point sources, and which allows us to define where the objects break out or breaks from. You can use vertices for the breaking points, or particles, which is just the object or over. That's be the face, the vertices, and the edges as well. And it defines the cracks and everything. Grease pencil is a very handy tool if you want to create something like a if you want to create something like a bullet penetrating through glass, and you got, or it's more of something to create. It's more handy when you want to create a kind of foreign effect on an object, like especially with glass. If you throw somebody through a glass, if you threw a brick through a glass window, I never done it personally, but just as an example, if you just threw a brick through a glass window, you get the central part of the object which is completely shattered and smashed. It works. You can use it. Just take a cracked window as a demonstration. You can see where the crack's epicenter is. That's what you can use the grease pencil to create an epicenter, and just build a grease pencil around the object, and therefore that's where the more higher concentration of the sources of the object come from. We're going to leave it on 100. We can change that to as much as you want, but be warned that the more you got, the more longer it will take to actually produce the object. So we're going to leave it as it is. We're going to leave our material stuff as it is. We ain't going to mess around with any of this, but you can if you want. When it comes to the materials, material 0 is your first material on the object. But you can change, but this allows you to change the interior. So if you actually shatter the object, you can have the interior of the model look different than the outside. And to do that, all you have to do is just press that arrow there to make it to 1. And 1 is basically your next material in the list. We also can have the mass to be volume or uniform. We're going to leave it as it is. Masses, we're just going to leave as it is. Layer index. We go it ticked on next layer. This is your default. Why is it like that? That is because that it does not, like, instead of it being in this layer, it's on the next layer. I will show you when I click OK. So just leave everything as it is for now, and but you can change it if you want to. I'm going to leave it as it is, and I'm going to click on OK. And as you can see, my sphere is building. No, it will not look like that cube. Now give it time. It does take a while for it to load because of its building various pieces. It does take some time depending on your computer. If you've got a very low end computer, then it is going to take a long time. If you've got a middle tier computer like mine, then it's going to be fine. It probably run better on my other computer, which is a more higher tier computer. But it's now done. So if I go here, yeah, down here you got these boxes. These are your layers, and as you can see, we now have our UV sphere in various pieces. That is what I was looking at. As you can see, we've got cracks around here, and down here, and around here. The only issue that some people might think is, how am I going to make it look like a building's collapsing, or how am I going to make it look like the object looks intact before something hits it? Well, what you can do, as an example, is, say I've got this. I'm going to move that to the other layer. To move it to the other layer, all you got to do is just press the M key and then just click here, and now it's in the second layer. That's what you can do. You can have our sphere, which is that, on top. And if you animate these boxes here, or these, you'd be able to change how it looks. So example, this eye is to hide your object in the viewport, but it won't hide it in the actual final render. That's something that you need to take in consideration. Some people think, oh, if I hide the object, it won't be seen in the scene. No, it will still be seen in your final render if you got this one activated. This one means that you can't click on that object, which is very handy if you're working on a project and you don't want to keep accidentally moving objects around because they're in the way. So you can just deactivate that, which means that I cannot click on the sphere, or move it around, or anything like that. And this one is your render. If I deactivate it here, you can still see it. You can still see it because this is the viewpoint. It's not the actual render. If I went into the final render, you won't see that cube, or sphere, should I say. I have come to the end of our YouTube version, or YouTube version of this segment. So those on YouTube, if you want to watch more of this, you can go to my website, which I leave a description. We'll leave the link into the description. As well, I'm going to leave our Patreon page as well. So for those who like what they see in these videos, or they want to help, or they want to donate to us for our other projects, you can go to our Patreon, donate your money to us. We will give some money to certain foundations and societies and places like that, depending on how much money we make. As well as you can watch for those, if you want to watch the full video, you can go to our website and subscribe to our channel, which is Blender with Luke. It's on our website. You can subscribe to it for $2.99 a month. You can pay a one-time purchase, which allows you to watch it forever under the $2.99 monthly subscription for $12, or you can rent the videos for 3 days for $1. So I'm Luke Knott from Aesthetics Interactive Studios. This is Blender with Luke, and I will see you guys another time on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked the video, you can always hit that subscribe button on YouTube. If you want to watch the full videos, you can go to our website, which is linked below. Thank you for watching.